She told everyone very clearly that they shouldn't wear any formal clothes or colors that weren't in the agreed upon color palette. But he didn't listen. It seemed like he was making a point. He wanted to make a point at his own wedding. Instead of doing what she asked, he went out and bought a new suit and showed up at their wedding. He would soon find out that his fiancée wasn't messing with him. Mike and Terry were together for more than 2 years before they finally decided to get married. In every way, they knew they were meant to be together. They had worked hard to make a good life for themselves. Because they shared a lot of similar interests and dislikes, everyone around them frequently said that they would assist one another. But one day, they would find out that they were different in a small way that would get in the way of the most important day of their lives. They met at a friend's Halloween party and started dating a few months later. He was the quiet, shy guy who was brooding in the corner of the room. She, on the other hand, was the lively, outgoing girl who was dancing in the middle of the dance floor. Soon, she was drawn to him the way he was drawn to her. After they met by chance, they became great friends, and then they fell in love. No one knew that everything would fall apart at the altar. From the beginning, it was hard to plan their wedding. Most of the time, things went well between them. Mike was always understanding, and Terry was always willing to give in to make things work. As soon as they started planning their wedding, it was clear that what they had first thought would be an easy task would push them to their limits. The result would be horrible. Mike jumped to his feet and stared at the woman he loved with wide eyes when she made her first request. "You don't want any children at the wedding ceremony?" He expressed sadness while repeating what she had stated. She nodded while crossing her arms across her chest. She also said that she didn't want kids at the ceremony and didn't want it to happen in a church. Everyone knew that Mike's faith ran deep. Terry watched him to see what he would do. Mike took a deep breath and walked around the living room for a few minutes before sitting down again. But right after he sat down, he got up again and put his hands on his waist. He asked Terry if what she said was real. "My nieces and nephews are looking forward to this," he said, not knowing if his fiancée was really thinking about getting married without children. "If not in a church, where do you think we're going to get married?" he asked. "The wedding will be at night in a barn," Terry said with confidence as he gave Mike some pictures. She gave him a clear idea of what she wanted. In the pictures, he could see a barn wedding with white roses and many rows of candles. She said, "But I don't want the roses and candles," which made Mike frown. "I want tattered clothes everywhere, dark colors, and red bulbs." But this was just the beginning of what she wanted. Terry told her fiancé straight-facedly, "I want wet red paint that looks like blood." He waited for her to laugh and tell him she was joking, but she never did. She then gave him another stack of photos that showed him exactly what she was talking about. "I want the guests to dress up as monsters or in colors that are in this color palette." She told him this while pointing her index finger at a range of colors, from black to red to silver to gray to dark purple. There was more, though. "This is going to be a creature feature wedding," she said as he stared at her with wide eyes. "I don't want my father to be the one who leads me down the aisle. I'd rather have a bunch of zombies chase me to you. I think we should do this around Halloween to save money and also go with the whole monster theme." Her happy smile never left her face as she talked. She could tell Mike was surprised. But was he going to let this happen? Mike had always known how much Terry liked movies with monsters. She had hundreds of monster-themed books, comics, games, movies, costumes, and dolls. Mike didn't disagree with most of her wedding plans, but he didn't like being left out of the planning. Also, this was his wedding. He decided to ask Terry one question to show him where he stood in his life. "What will we dress as?" Mike asked, folding his hands across his chest. He liked the idea, but didn't like that his nieces and nephews wouldn't be at his wedding. He could at least listen to Terry. Terry said, "We can dress up as Dracula and Mina." She said that the ceremony was too scary for children to attend. But on a happier note, she said, "Our costumes are already at the tailor's." His heart just stopped. "Dracula?" He stuttered, already picturing himself in full makeup and a weird red cape standing in front of his friends and family. He loved his wife a lot, but he couldn't do that to himself. He said, "This is crazy," but only to himself. That simple comment would start a long fight between the two about the wedding plans, which would end in a chaotic exchange on the day of the wedding. Terry set up her dream barn wedding and invited all of her friends and family, who felt comfortable enough to be there. She ran down the aisle while zombies chased her. She was wearing a custom-made dress from the 1800s, and her makeup made her look like the beautiful bride of a vampire. But when she saw what it was, it stopped her in her tracks. Mike was at the altar wearing a typical blue suit. He didn't have his hair pulled back like Dracula, nor was he wearing any makeup. Terry's flower arrangement fell to the floor. She stutteringly said, "Get out. Leave." Mike walked away and disappeared in the red lights of the barn. But he came back a minute later in a long red cape and full makeup. He walked in with a majestic air and a beautiful smile. One thing stayed the same, though. Mike kept his blue suit, but the collar of his white shirt was stained red. He also had fangs and golden eyes, which made his eyes shine in the barn. He leaned in close to Terry and whispered in a Romanian accent, "Hello, bride." She shook from excitement. Mike and Terry got married under the red glow of the barn. There were all kinds of monsters in front of them, from vampires and werewolves to Frankenstein's monster, witches, and zombies. How great would their marriage be if their wedding was crazy and awesome? Disclaimer: some names, places, and identifying traits have been changed or made up by the author to protect the privacy of the people shown. Any similarities to real events, places, or people, whether alive or dead, are just a coincidence.